Welcome to Outside the Lines. I'm Ryan Smith. Our big story today, the breaking news out of Columbus, Ohio. Urban Meyer stepping down at Ohio State after facing Washington in the Rose Bowl. An hour from now, Meyer's going to hold a press conference announcing his retirement, perhaps explaining why he's moving on, handing over the reins to his offensive coordinator, Ryan Day, just after the new year. Now, Meyer is 82-9 in 7 seasons at OSU, including his 3rd career national championship. But this was easily one of his most trying seasons. He was suspended for the first 3 games of the season for his handling of domestic violence accusations against former assistant coach Zach Smith. And the 54-year-old coach has been fighting the effects of a cyst on his brain. This image of him dropping to his knees during an October matchup with Indiana, offering a glimpse into the health issues that he's been facing. Joining me now from Columbus is ESPN writer Dan Murphy. All right, so Dan, what is the latest there? I see you standing waiting for that press conference to begin.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, things are starting to fill up here at the Ohio State Athletic Department's main offices across the street from where 3 months ago we were here for Urban Meyer's suspension. It's been a long and trying season, and he's told most folks around campus here that his health has been the main concern, the reason why he's decided to step down at 54 years old in the middle of his career. This is the 2nd time he's left the coaching job for health reasons, now Florida, several years ago as well.
Yeah, very difficult for him. Why did he choose to make this announcement now?
Well, I think there's a number of factors. Just the end of the season, it's something that he seemed like he made a decision over the weekend after winning a Big Ten championship. He was very emotional Saturday night with his wife and kids on the field after beating Northwestern for his 2nd straight Big Ten championship. It's also an interesting timing because of the early signing day period. Ohio State's expected to bring in one of the top 10 or 15 recruiting classes in the country here, which starts in 2 weeks. So having a chance for Ryan Day and the rest of the coaches to get their feet under them on the recruiting trail. Most of those coaches are out around the country right now talking to young prospects, guys that will be coming to Columbus next year, and being able to get this out of the way and establish some continuity with the new staff is a big part of the timing.
Yeah, you mentioned Ryan Day. We just got word moments ago that he has signed a new deal. Do you know any other information about that? What are we hearing?
Yeah, we know that the deal has been finalized at this point. The exact details they'll announce here in just about an hour. Day is expected here along with Athletic Director Gene Smith and Urban Meyer as part of this press conference, which will take place right behind us. We've heard several reports that it's about 5 years. That was first reported by Bruce Feldman at The Athletic. Heard that several times from different sources. Ohio State hasn't confirmed that number yet, but that seems to be about the length that we're expecting.
You know, Dan, I think that there had been talk about this. There was initially talk that he might step down after 2019, but I think it caught everybody by surprise that this announcement was happening today and that it was going to be after this season. Talk to us about the level of surprise that you feel there or that people are communicating at this point.
Yeah, I think surprise in the timing is fair to say, but the few folks that I've talked to within the program said they weren't shocked. You know, they obviously heard the reports just as well as anybody else. They saw Meyer throughout the year and the way he struggled with those headache issues, the stress-related headache issues, more this year really than he has in the past. And it's obviously been a stressful several months for him and for the rest of the folks in the program. So no one was terribly shocked that he decided to make the decision. They knew that this was something that was on the table. The timing of it, most people didn't know it was going to happen. He started making calls late last night, 5 o'clock in this morning is when most of his staff members found out that he was in fact going to retire.
All right, Dan Murphy, thank you so much. I know you've been all over this. We'll come back to you and hopefully we'll see more after the press conference in just under an hour. Thanks, Dan. All right, let's bring in Paul Feinbaum, host of the Paul Feinbaum Show. Okay, so Paul, let me just get your reaction to Urban Meyer retiring.
It is not surprising, Ryan, for many, many reasons. You and the rest of the nation watched that late August news conference where the awkward body language seemed to say it all, the awkward body language between Urban Meyer, the president, and, of course, the athletic director. It was interesting after that when it was reported and later confirmed that a board member stepped down because he wanted Urban Meyer fired. And you also read the body language of Urban Meyer that night. He seemed shocked. The fact that this university that he had done so much for, in his mind, these are my words, not his, had the nerve to suspend him for 3 games. He didn't feel like he should have been suspended at all. And then later, when he did that extraordinary interview about a month later with Tom Rinaldi, he still didn't seem to quite get it. So as a result of that, an accumulation of so many other things, including the health issues, many began to wonder. Word in the coaching community was that he was considering stepping down, and obviously, ultimately, he made that decision.
So it's interesting. They're mentioning that health is part of this. You're saying their handling of the situation back in August with Zach Smith and how they approached Meyer might have had some influence in it. So does that lead you to believe that we could see him on the sidelines again?
Well, yes. When they convene in an hour, you and I can both accurately predict that health will be the entire situation. And Gene Smith will likely say, as he has said in other interviews, that he and Urban Meyer's relationship has never been better, of course. But I don't know whether he'll coach again, but I will tell you this, Ryan. I covered Urban Meyer at the University of Florida, and a lot of people have forgotten that at the end of the 2009 season, when he lost to Nick Saban in one of the epic 1-versus-2 matchups ever in the SEC championship game, he was rushed to the hospital that night. He was under so much stress. Before the Sugar Bowl game, he announced that he was stepping down. The next day, he reversed that, being talked into it by many people, and ultimately a year later, after a miserable final season, he stepped down. So I don't think you can ever be sure. I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly what the circumstances are, but we haven't heard a lot about that until the Zach Smith situation.
Yeah, and the stress of college football, well known on coaches. You know, Paul, let me ask you, as I look at this and you look at what happened with Zach Smith, Urban Meyer has been unquestionably a good football coach on the field, but this tainted him. It did. What do you think his legacy will be?
I think his legacy will still be intact. And yes, it did taint him. It was embarrassing. A lot of adjectives by me and others were used to describe his character. But on top of all that, he will be described, if this is the end, as one of the greatest coaches of his era and maybe of all time. Certainly in this current era, he is as close to Nick Saban as anyone has gotten. He has 3 national championships. It's worth remembering in 2014, when he beat Saban in the national semifinals, many people declared Urban Meyer as the best coach in the game. Saban has won a couple of national championships since then. Urban Meyer has not. He has gotten back to the playoffs once and was badly beaten by Clemson and nearly missed the last 2 years. But I think if you widen the scope and look at the last 30 or 40 or 50 years, he will certainly be on that Mount Rushmore. He is that good of a coach, and I think that will outweigh his miserable handling of the Zach Smith situation.
Yeah, you're talking about an 85.3% winning percentage in college football, third best in college football history. So let me ask you this. You talk about Ohio State. You talk about Dwayne Haskins. He's in the running along with Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray for the Heisman. And what's been interesting is that Kyler Murray has started to pull ahead with Vegas odds makers. Who's got your vote at this point and why?
It would be Tua, and it would be very, very close, Ryan, because I try to look at the whole body of work. I was in Atlanta Saturday, and it was tough to watch. Tua had a miserable game, and ultimately he was hurt. And I think it makes matters worse that his backup, Jalen Hurts, the person he replaced a year ago, came in and won the game. But I have not seen a quarterback over the entire course of the season play as well as he has in a long, long time. Kyler's numbers are extraordinary, but Tua was in a different stratosphere. So in what I think will be one of the closest votes we've had, and I think one of the most difficult votes for Heisman electors, he will get my vote, although I don't think he will win.
Yeah, you know what? If you're giving it to guys who can play 2 sports really well, Kyler Murray's getting that $4.8 million signing bonus from the A's, reporting to spring training. One more thing, Paul. We have seen more and more players this year saying they're not playing in bowl games. Guys are trying to keep themselves injury-free. What do you think about this? It just seems like fans are having trouble with them not playing, but at the same time, you could see players saying, I'm trying to protect my future.
You can't blame them. It's interesting. We were on this program 2 years ago talking about Fournette and Christian McCaffrey, and it was like, we can't believe this is going on. 2 years later, it is commonplace, and I don't even think it's why should I? And quite frankly, most of these bowl games, Ryan, are irrelevant. They're bad matchups in faraway places that don't mean very much to anyone outside of that community and to the respective teams. And to risk injury, as we have seen in the past, simply is not worth it.
Yeah, it'd be tough for many fans, but at the same time, players thinking about their future. Paul Finebaum, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. Always a pleasure.
All right, by the way, you can see Urban Meyer's news conference announcing his retirement live at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And coming up, details of another accusation of off-the-field violence levied at Kareem Hunt.